Hey everybody, welcome on our channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Ty Lee, Mai and Azula. Part 1. Huge shout out to LordofLust for this story. If you are new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe our channel and like the video too. So without wasting any more time, let's start the story. Children born within the Fire Nation usually showed whether or not they had the abilities to become a firebender at the age of 4. Sometimes they did so a little earlier and sometimes a little later. These sort of things could be affected after who the child's parents were, if they were both firebenders and how good they were. There were many special factors involved. However, never in the history of the Fire Nation had there been a case quite as intriguing as Naruto's. Naruto, firstborn son of Azula and Ursa and second-born grandchild of Azula. Naruto, just a few weeks after being born, had begun showing signs of firebending, small blue flames that had never been seen before. Being born like this, Naruto was placed in a flame-proof room in fear that he might burn or kill himself. While Ursa was concerned for her son, Azula was swelling with pride. Their child must have been blessed. Even the sages of the Fire Nation came regularly to check up on small Naruto. To the eye he looked just like a normal small baby boy with small blonde hair, but when a hand was placed on the child, they found him warm. He wasn't burning hot, but he was still too warm. Naruto was then placed in a colder room to grow up. After 2 years, Naruto gained a new little brother. Just like Naruto, Azula had high hopes for the child. However, the child that was named Zuko showed none of the talents Naruto possessed. This of course wasn't Zuko's fault, and Ursa loved the new child just as much as Naruto, just as any mother would. At the age of 3, Naruto easily created big flames by swinging his arms happily around and had just started to explore the possibilities of lightning. Due to his special condition, it had been decided that the 3-year-old Naruto would begin his homeschooling early on, instead of sending him to an elite school where the youngest would be older than him. Naruto was taught by the greatest firebenders in the nation. However, their teachings were short, as Naruto proved to absorb their teachings. When he had been shown a firebending technique once, he was able to copy it to perfection, shocking his teachers. Even his grandfather Azula taught Naruto about their culture, the war they were in, and about the Avatar. When Naruto turned 4, there was yet another addition to the family, this time a little girl. Once again, Azula had his hope raised for the child just to be a little like Naruto, but again, just like Zuko, there was no bending early on. Azula and Ursa had decided that they would allow Naruto to hold his new little sister, who would be named Azula. Of course, it was only recently that Naruto had been allowed anywhere near Zuko, because there was a fear that Naruto could burn him, but now they judged him to have enough control to hold the child. When Naruto held Azula in his arms, a big smile formed on her small face, and she let out a little laugh, and Naruto instantly fell in love. When Naruto turned 5, the small years could be considered over. Zuko had still to show any signs of firebending. And for the first time in Naruto's life, Azula had decided to bring him outside the palace. This did frighten Naruto a little, as he had been spending his little life confined to the palace. The only outside he had ever been was in the royal gardens, spending time playing with his cousin or having dinner with his mom. Azula were dragging Naruto out of the palace for the opportunity to witness a military demonstration. This demonstration was taking place to celebrate 10 new warships, where the biggest among them had been named after Naruto. The demonstration didn't go as planned, as so few things does. The general who organized the demonstration had been extra harsh on the new recruits, as the general wanted to give the Fire Lord a good impression of his work. What happened was a young recruit shot a stray fireball. There was a horrific silence as the ball was shot towards small Naruto. Nor Azula had time to react before it hit Naruto straight in the face and lit him up. Azula hurried to his side and tried to save his boy. Everything broke out into panic as a member of the royal family had been set on fire. However, Naruto simply stood there covered in flames. "Dad, is something wrong?" Naruto asked, shocking Azula. "Naruto, you are on fire." Azula spoke, still in shock, looking at his boy just standing there as if nothing had happened. Naruto took a quick look at his hands and saw the flames dancing on his skin. "Yeah, but it's okay. It actually feels nice." Naruto responded as he gave his dad a big smile shining through the flames. From there on, things began to take speed as the fire sages began to visit more often, coming with various different theories as how this was possible, and in the Fire Nation, they also began discussing what it could possibly mean. The most common theory was he was going to become the greatest firebender who ever lived. Even in the Earth Kingdom, there was various story about the little boy. When Naruto turned 6, both Zuko and Azula was confirmed as firebenders as well, Zuko at the average age of 4, while Azula hit quite early at only 2. However, much to Azula's glee, Azula showed to use the same flames as her older brother Naruto, believing Azula to have the same abilities as Naruto. However, Azula accidentally burned Azula. It was a small wound. But Naruto felt terrible. It was because she was being compared to him it happened, and Ursa didn't take it well either. Even though it was a small wound that would heal in a week, Azula didn't get any luck in bed for the next 2 months. When Naruto turned 7, he fell in love for the second time, the first one being the time he held Azula in his arms. This time however it was on his birthday, and he along with his dad and mom was visiting one of the few earthbender rehabilitation camps there was placed on a nearby island. The earthbenders were put to good use so that the Fire Nation would one day be able to create a better world. However, as they were walking around the camp, Naruto's eyes met that of a girl. She looked just the same age. She had a pale skin, dark hair that reached down to her chin and beautiful gray eyes. "Dad, can I please have her?" Naruto spoke as he pulled on his father's clothes and pointed towards the young pretty girl. Both Azula and Ursa looked in the direction their son was so eagerly pointing and saw a small dark-haired girl doing her best to walk with 2 heavy buckets in her hands. "She is an earthbender, Naruto, she is not worth your time," Azula said as he pulled himself free from his son's grasp and continued walking, expecting Ursa and Naruto to follow, but was instead annoyed as they remained standing. "I'm not moving unless she comes too," Naruto said just like any child would. He might already at the age of 7 be more skilled at firebending than anyone else, but he was still just a child. "Honey, it is his birthday," Ursa reminded him. Azula stood still for just a moment before he with a sigh gave in. With a snap of his finger he pointed at the working girl. "Bring her here," Azula demanded, and the guards quickly complied, grabbing the girl who looked panicked and afraid as they lifted her. The rope was bound around her neck as the end of the rope was handed to Naruto. "Naruto, she is your responsibility now, and if she steps out of line I will personally deal with her, do you understand?" Azula questioned Naruto, who was more interested in looking at the girl he was just handed. "Yes dad, thanks, I love you, my name is Naruto, what is yours?" Naruto asked as he had let go of the rope and had instead taken a hold of one of her hands. "Mikasa," she murmured in a little shy voice, looking down into the ground. Back at the palace, Naruto had gotten Mikasa with him inside his room. Mikasa looked a bit fragile, so Naruto had quickly offered her some food. At first she was a bit careful, she didn't know the boy and she couldn't remember the last time someone had been nice to her, but when it became clear to her that he didn't mean her any harm and she could eat it without any consequences, she quickly emptied multiple platters of food while Naruto stared at her amazed. He had never seen anyone eat so much. Mikasa was actually crying a little, the food was heaven. When she was done eating she noticed that Naruto had just been staring at her, not really knowing what to do. She was quite scared of doing anything that would displease him. "Thank you very much for the food, your majesty," Mikasa spoke as she went down on her knees and arms while her forehead was touching the floor. "You don't have to kneel, and I'm glad that you liked, oh, and you can just call me Naruto, I would prefer that," Naruto said as he helped Mikasa back on her feet. For a moment she looked at him a bit strangely before she responded with a small, "okay." She had been working in the camp for as long as she could remember, and one of the most important things that she had learned was to address the firebenders working there with respect, and yet a member of the royal family told her it was okay just to call him by his name. Naruto, realizing how dirty she was, grabbed her hand. "Come, let's take a bath, would you prefer the one normal or the semi-indoors?" Naruto asked while Mikasa looked at him, a question mark above her head. How could a bath be semi-indoors? "You decide," Mikasa spoke. "Well, mom won't let me use the semi-indoors one alone because she is afraid that I will fall out of the palace. Alright, follow me," Naruto said as he began to drag her around the palace. The palace seemed huge to her, almost as if it would never end. When they came to the bath, it was again a huge room filled with water and a lot of steam. Both children quickly stripped of their clothes and Naruto went first into the water and Mikasa quickly followed. They weren't shy of looking at each other naked as neither had taken an interest in the opposite sex yet. Both children relaxed and eventually Naruto did manage to make Mikasa play with him as they began to spray water back and forth. For the first time he heard Mikasa laugh. It was a beautiful sound and her smile was a beautiful sight. He wanted more of it. "Mikasa, I wash your back," Naruto spoke. However, when he moved behind her his eyes caught multiple scars and wounds all over her back. When he carefully placed a hand over one of the scars she tensed. "Oh sorry, did it hurt?" Naruto asked, worried. "No, go ahead," Mikasa spoke. When Naruto began washing her back she closed her eyes in pleasure and wondered, were all slaves treated like this? She really didn't know, but what she did know that being a slave so far wasn't bad. "Say Mikasa, what kind of clothes do you want?" Naruto asked. She arrived at the palace wearing nothing but a rag. "I don't know, will you pick for me?" she asked. She didn't really know what kinds of clothes she could ask. And Naruto looked deep in thought. "Well, I don't really think red is your color, maybe green is better. I don't really know, I just get you a lot of clothes and then you can pick," Naruto told her merrily as he continued to wash her back. When night had fallen it was time to figure out where Mikasa could sleep. There was plenty of guest rooms she could pick from, but Mikasa didn't really look comfortable in any of them, so instead Naruto had brought an extra pillow on his own bed. His bed was too big for just one person anyway, and it was nice having someone to talk with all night. And then even more years went on and Naruto and Mikasa became inseparable, you could never one of them without the other. Zuko had turned out to be an average firebender, where Azula turned out to be quite a prodigy, but she was never able to compete with Naruto, something that clearly bothered her, even though she still admired him. Azula was however not fond of Mikasa, who in her eyes was a dirty earthbender with no business in the palace and should be thrown out and back in camp as quickly as possible. Many others shared those feelings with her, but that was mostly the servants in the palace who would never let their thoughts be known. They were just waiting for Prince Naruto to grow bored of her. Azula had made friends, two girls her own age, the daughter of a governor named Mai and the daughter of a noble family named Ty Lee. Azula didn't know, but Naruto was slightly jealous. She was able to go to school and make friends, while his dad and granddad forced him to stay at home, locked up and reading books and fighting other firebenders. Except for Mikasa, he didn't have any friends. He would have loved to make some though. The worst year was when Naruto turned 11, that was the year where Naruto experienced a death in the family. His cousin Lu Ten had died in the siege of Ba Sing Se, a siege his uncle Iroh was in charge of. Horrible day for the Fire Nation really, there was a great funeral in his honor, however the siege continued. Making his own dad unable to attend the funeral, and no more than 3 months later did his grandfather depart. The throne was then given to his father despite Iroh being the older brother, when Naruto had asked his father why he had become the new Fire Lord. His dad told him that it had always been his grandfather's will for Naruto to one day have the seat, and for that Azai had to take the seat first. At the age of 12 Naruto began to experience some changes. He became a bit more curious about Mikasa and how she looked. Mikasa of course had never told Naruto no and was therefore sitting naked on the bed along with an equally naked Naruto, while their hands was curiously exploring each other. It was all fun of games until mom walked in, then it became awkward. His mother then gave both children the talk, the long version of the talk that is, and while it did put an end to some of their explorations, there was certain things you couldn't stop a child in puberty from doing. One of these things were that Naruto and Mikasa shared their first kiss together, and when they went to bed, they put a little more effort into pressing against each other. This was especially welcoming for Mikasa when the snow felt in the winter. For Naruto was always so wonderfully warm to the touch, not so much in the warm summer though. When they both were 15, they gave their virginities to each other. Sex became something regular and a part of the everyday routine. There was no way to keep their relationship a secret either, as most people in the palace had overheard them when walking by Naruto's room. Both Zuko and Azula had also become aware of what they were doing, as Ursa had given them both a talk a bit earlier to avoid the same scene as Naruto and Mikasa gave her. When Naruto turned 16, there was a small accident during Zuko's first war meeting. Naruto had been allowed to witness these meetings since he was 8, as long as he would keep silent. When he turned 12, he was allowed to give his own ideas. When he turned 14, Naruto was made Supreme Commander, giving him the authority to order the other generals and admirals around. It was the highest military rank there was, which of course meant that a young Zuko at the age of 14 now desperately wanted to attend a war meeting himself, despite not having been invited by his father. While Naruto was pleasantly surprised to see his little brother would take part in the meeting, he also knew his brother was a bit impulsive at times, and if he wasn't aware of how these meetings worked, he would end up making a fool of himself and in worst case insulting someone. Which was exactly what happened. A general had come up with a plan to sacrifice a whole division of new recruits, and while the plan was terrible, what should proceed was that here would be a vote on whatever this plan should take place or not, where everyone could voice their arguments and ideas about the plan. Of course the Fire Lord could overrule a vote if he wished. But what happened was Zuko began talking about morals and judged the general as a monster for even thinking about such a plan. Of course it was an insult. The Nikai became the only solution. Zuko had prepared himself to face the general he insulted, but everything around him crumbled when he saw that it was his older brother he was to fight. Zuko had spoken out of turn at his father's war meeting, and thus his dad had been the one Zuko insulted. His dad, being the insulted party, was free to choose anyone he wished to fight for him if he did not wish to fight for himself, and in this case chose Naruto. Naruto took no pleasure in what he did that day, but he also believed that it was for Zuko's own good. Zuko had spent way too much time around his mother's arms, he needed to be tested. Naruto had scarred Zuko true as his father told him to do, but if anything it was mercy. Had it been as his father wished, the scar would have been 3 times as big. Hopefully Zuko learned something that day. Azai then banished Zuko, only to return when he had found it and captured the avatar. Then for a time everything was quiet. Azula was practicing her firebending with some of the greatest master in the nation, though she preferred when Naruto would help. She always wanted to show him how she was developing and show him the new techniques she had learned. Naruto had become a bit more of a free soul as he liked to travel around with Mikasa. From time to time he would just disappear. Right now Naruto was 18 years old, with bright blue eyes that would sometimes shine with the same power as his flames. His spiky blonde hair had been allowed to grow wild and free, as Mikasa said that it matched his personality. He was currently on a small ship on a mission given to him by his father. They would arrive at their destination in about half a day, but to make the time go. Right in front of Naruto was a naked Mikasa. She had grown in certain areas as well. Her hair had been kept about the same length as Naruto's, so it wouldn't go any further down than to her chin. She was placed on all four, while Naruto's hand slowly trailed along her sides, his mouth leaving small kisses on the scars on her back. She loved being his slave, she loved Naruto. And soon they will arrive at Kaiashi Island. Do you have any idea where we are actually going? Sokka asked Aang as they were all flying over the ocean on Appa's back. Of course I do, we are heading for Kaiashi Island. Aang the Avatar spoke. There is something there that I just have to show you too. Aang continued as his eyes briefly traveled towards Katara. Wait, are you sure, Aang? We will have to get to the North Pole as soon as possible. Maybe it would be best if we just continued. Also, the quicker we get to the North Pole, the faster we can get rid of Zuko. Katara spoke. She was eager to meet with other waterbenders and finally find herself and Aang a teacher. By the way, Katara, are my pants done yet? You are a girl, you should be faster than this. Sokka interrupted. It was cold this high up in the air and above the sea, and his pants had a massive hole in them that Katara was currently sewing. Wait, what do you mean by me being a girl that I should be able to sew faster? Katara asked, offended. It's simple, girls are better at sewing, shopping and wearing makeup, while guys are better at fighting, hunting and being generally smarter than girls. Sokka told her. Oh, would you look at that, all done with your pants now. Katara spoke before she threw the half-finished pants right in her brother's face. Wait, Katara, I wasn't serious, please, I can't wear these. Sokka yelled out. We are here. Aang announced, and both brother and sister could watch as they quickly approached a small island. Appa gently landed on the island. Aang looked carefully around. He had visited Kaiashi Island once before 100 years ago. There was more snow though, and right now it looked like the snow had just melted. The next thing that happened was that there was a giant splash of water. Sokka was looking at the humongous koi fish swimming out in the ocean close to the shore of the beach where they landed. That has to be the second biggest koi fish that I have ever seen. Sokka spoke in awe. While Aang was busy stripping of his clothes. Those are the reason why we are here. I'm going to ride it. Aang spoke happily before he found himself restrained. It happened so fast that neither Sokka nor Katara had time to react as they were captured as well. I knew we shouldn't have trusted the Fire Nation. First one envoy turns up, and now this can't be a coincidence. The leader of the Kaiashi warriors named Suki spoke. Kaiashi village. I don't believe there are any way that we can resort this peacefully. Naruto spoke with a tired sigh as his head rested on Mikasa's lap. Kaiashi Island was a part of the Earth Kingdom, but also a complete independent island who only took care for themselves. It was also the only place in the world that was neutral to the wars outside, however they still had a clear hatred towards the Fire Nation. Mikasa was stroking Naruto's blonde hair and looked down upon his relaxed face. Does it matter? She asked. They came to solve this with diplomacy, however there were also a small navy waiting not too far away, waiting to attack if the diplomacy failed, the problem with that being the Inagi whose mouth could spray jets of water so powerful they could cut through ships. They were currently staying at an inn. Kaiashi village was small, so they were actually staying at the only inn there was, and they were the only ones currently living there. They shared the best room, but it wasn't anything special, boring colors, at least they had a balcony, and there was a hot spring just outside. As Naruto was about to fall asleep on Mikasa's well-toned thighs, the door to their room was slammed open. Naruto slowly opened one eye to see who was disturbing him. When he noticed it was the Kaiashi warrior, he couldn't really get annoyed at them, and they were all pretty young women. However, the leader of them marched right at the relaxing Naruto. You are coming with us, Mr. Diplomat. Suki spoke as she grabbed Naruto's collar only for her own wrist to be grabbed by Mikasa. The rest of the warriors quickly surrounded both Naruto and Mikasa, while Suki had to let go of Naruto because of Mikasa shocking her with her incredible physical strength. Mikasa. Naruto spoke, and the moment he spoke her name, Mikasa let go of the girl's wrist. Suki was still a little in shock, but quickly straightened herself. Follow us. She spoke with as much authority in her as she could muster. Mikasa was looking at Naruto and awaiting a command. Naruto, noticing this, gave her a soft smile. We might as well follow, see what they want. Naruto spoke as they both stood up and followed behind the group of women. The group of women led Naruto and Mikasa towards the statue of Avatar Kaiashi, where a small crowd had gathered. Passing through, Naruto saw that there were 3 people tied up against the statue. We found these Fire Nation spies on our beach, a bit convenient just one day after you show up here. Suki spoke. Those 2, judging from their skin color, are Water Tribe, most likely from the South Pole this close to Kaiashi. I have no idea about the last one, but none of them are with me. Naruto spoke. And are we just supposed to believe that? Suki spoke with anger in her voice. Believe whatever you want. Naruto simply answered. Naruto and Suki had a small stare contest, in which Naruto quickly won. There was just something about his eyes. Suki turning towards her prisoners removed the blindfold from her first prisoner. Who are you? She asked the first boy. No, wait, who are you? And where are the men who ambushed us? Naruto smirked slightly. The boy clearly wasn't interested in answering questions, but was it asking his own. There were no men, we ambushed you. Suki asked, clearly annoyed with his attitude towards women. I thought he was supposed to be answering your question and not the other way around. Naruto asked her, causing her to sprout a small blush. Lucky for her, it was invisible beneath her white makeup mask. Who are you? The boy continued to ask questions, this time towards Naruto. Well, I'm an envoy from the Fire Nation, and Naruto was cut off as the boy reacted powerfully along with the two others who were still blindfolded. Why are you all allowing people from the Fire Nation on the island? They are evil and can't be trusted. Naruto was just standing there and listened. I'm not here with any ill intent, boy. Naruto spoke and managed to get eye contact with the boy. Who quickly was forced to look away. Something was definitely wrong with his eyes. Soon after, all three were cut down from the statue. When Katara spotted Naruto, she gained quite the blush on her cheeks. Serious hot eye alert. The last one, the boy with an arrow on his head, was the Avatar, and while most seemed shocked at this, the envoy from the Fire Nation seemed to take it calmly. Naruto did receive a hawk a few days before he arrived at Kaioshin, telling him that the Avatar had returned. However, right now, as Naruto was looking at the Avatar, he felt disappointed. He had hoped that the Avatar would be an older master of all four elements, capable of giving Naruto a challenge, but he was just a child. But he was also disappointed that Zuko hadn't captured this boy yet. Should be easy for him. Naruto and Mikasa were currently sitting in front of the Avatar and his friend Katara. So how may I help you, Avatar? Naruto asked. He would prefer to get this over with quickly. Before those two came, him and Mikasa were on their way into the hot spring to have fun. I just wanted to ask you, since you are the first from the Fire Nation who haven't outright attacked me. From your point of view, what is the meaning of this war? Aang asked. For the most part, the Avatar looked like a goofy kid, but he could easily tell how serious this question was for the boy. To spread out culture and help build a better world for both benders and non-benders. Naruto answered as if it was the most natural thing in the world. The Fire Nation is taking over everything it can with force. There must be a balance. The Fire Nation is trying to wipe out all other benders than themselves. Aang spoke, his voice rising in tone. You're wrong. This war isn't about superiority or extinction. We don't have this war to simply take over land and kill everyone who isn't a firebender. We do this because we sincerely believe that our way of life will help everyone else. Just this morning your friend seemed quite shocked that he was beaten by girls, and I know there are some discrimination against women in the water tribes, that they are supposed to be less worth than men. Naruto spoke and tried to hold back a small smirk when he saw the water tribe girl react to his words. If this isn't about killing, then answer, why was all the air nomads slaughtered? Was that to help them? Aang asked, and Naruto saw him saddened. I can't answer for the work of my grief for the work of Fire Lord Sazin. I wasn't there, but I believe that he had a just reason, as do the rest of the Fire Nation. Naruto answered. He almost forgot that everyone thought he was just a diplomat. It's not right, there must be a balance. When I was around for more than 100 years ago, everyone lived in peace and were happy. What the Fire Nation are doing now is cruel. Aang spoke. Please remember, Avatar, that in the heart of everyone they all believe themselves to be a hero and their actions to be just. Have a good day. Naruto spoke as they both left, his eyes lingering on Katara until the door closed and Naruto and Mikasa was left alone. What did you think? Naruto asked Mikasa. He is a child, he is of no threat. Mikasa answered. However, Mikasa quickly realized she said something wrong when Naruto stared weirdly on her. I know that, I meant the girl, didn't she have a cute butt? Naruto asked. I suppose. She simply answered. She would much rather he looked at hers instead. Night. Naruto and Mikasa were walking around the village late at night. They were currently headed towards the beach when Naruto caught sight of a building out in the corner of his eye. It was currently the only building whose lights were still on. The building was for training, more exact where the Kaioshin warriors were training. When Naruto came to the building and looked inside, he could see all the women training, but there were also the boy from the southern water tribe. He was dressed exactly like the women. Boy, are you here to spy? Sokka yelled as he noticed that blonde from the Fire Nation and that hot girl who always followed him. No, I came here to look at pretty young women and for a good fight, but instead I find you. Naruto pointed out as he grabbed Sokka's face and pushed him down on the floor, so he landed on his ass. That's it, fight me. I will kick your ass. Sokka yelled as he quickly lifted himself from the ground and placed both hands on Naruto's chest and tried to push him away, but he backed down slightly when Naruto didn't move an inch after Sokka had tried pushing him. Very well, I accept your challenge. Naruto spoke as he took of his red robes, so he only kept on a red pair of loose pants and his sandals, which he also threw off. Sokka's jaw almost hit the floor along with many of the Kaioshin warriors. Wasn't this man supposed to be a diplomat? His body suddenly told a different story, being muscular and lean, with a few scars spread upon it. Naruto handed his robe to Mikasa to hold until he put this barking dog back in his place. Ready when you are. Naruto spoke confidently. Sokka was so unfortunate that he had something that he called his pride, which forced him to attack the blonde. As Sokka ran towards Naruto, the first one to take action was Naruto, who with a fast movement, punched out towards Sokka's face. Sokka however managed to dodge beneath the fist, a big smile plastered on his face, as he was ready to deliver Naruto an uppercut straight to the jaw, but before he had the chance he felt all air leave him and his eyes rolling back, as Naruto had planted his knee deep into his stomach, sending him into the air and down on his back. I must admit I had hoped for something more of a challenge. Oh well, are any of you girls interested in a spare? Naruto asked with a small smirk which pissed off Suki. I take you on, but I have one demand. Suki spoke as for a moment her eyes turned towards Mikasa. If I win you will release your slave. Suki demanded. Suki could barely stand not having attacked Naruto earlier, just knowing he was a slave owner sickened her, and Suki knew how strong the girl was when she gripped her arm. It would be amazing if she learned to be a Kaioshin warrior. Wow, so if I lose I have to give up Mikasa, but if you lose then nothing happens. Those are some harsh rules, but Finn, I accept. Naruto spoke, much to Suki's glee. She was already planning how she was going to win this. First charge him. When he tries to land a punch, grab his arm and throw him over her shoulder, making him land on his back. When down, straddle him and finish him with 2 quick punches to the face. However, nothing as plans often go. This one failed. When she was just about to charge, Naruto shocked her by beating her to it. Naruto, shocked with his speed when he was in front of her, Naruto raised one leg and was about to kick her in the chest, but Suki quickly reacted and brought up her hands in a cross guard. When his foot met her guard she was launched backwards, but quickly got back on her feet. Naruto quickly came running again, the same move. This time however Suki managed to catch his leg and hold it in the air, and with her other arm, she slammed her elbow down on his kneecap. However, instead of making a sound of pain, Naruto just stared at her. They both fell on the ground when Naruto used his other leg to swipe Suki off the ground. When Suki was back up against the wall she barely avoided a fist coming against. When it hit the wall however it created a small crater in the cement wall. I surrender. Suki finally spoke. Her body was sore from the places Naruto had actually landed a hit, and had that hit her face she could have died. Meanwhile Naruto had a small smirk. He hadn't aimed for her head, he just wanted to scare her. Women and men were equal in Naruto's eyes. However, that did not change the fact that guys are naturally stronger than women, and while he did admire Suki for having mastered a martial art, their difference in strength was just too great. She could have landed a 100 punches, and it would only begin to sting. Mikasa would be a good example as they trained together. She was just as muscular as he was, however he would never spare against her, as Naruto would never be able to throw a punch her way. He loved her too much. The other Kaioshin warriors and Sokka, who had gotten back on his feet, had all watched the fight. They saw how Naruto reached out his hands to shake Suki's, but when she took it her eyes rolled back and she lost consciousness. Naruto then lunged out towards the other Kaioshin warrior, and Sokka, the moment he touched them they fell down on the floor. Lightning crackled in his hands. You can all rest for now. Naruto spoke as Mikasa approached and helped him back in his robe. Now that everyone was asleep, Naruto and Mikasa continued towards their original goal. It didn't take them long before they arrived at the beach. A beautiful sight at night as the water was dark blue with small waves in the water, pushing the water in towards the beach. Not a single sky above, the stars were shining brightly along with the moon further out in the water. A small elephant koi could be seen swimming around in the bay. What he was about to do brought him no joy, but it was his mission nonetheless. Once again Naruto stripped of his clothes, this time all of it leaving him completely naked. Mikasa was keeping her distance to watch. Blue flames began to emerge on Naruto's skin, the flames dancing and continued to rise in intensity, before soon his body had disappeared beneath the flames, as he looked more like a moving flame. However, as Naruto began to move closer to the sea, the flames began to die down and was replaced with crackle and screeching, as his body became completely covered in pale blue lightning. The moment Naruto took his first step out into the water, the entire bay lit up as his lightning spread all over the water. Naruto stood there still for a while before the lightning completely disappeared, and then shortly after big dead elephant koi came floating up to the surface and were shortly after accompanied by an even bigger green serpent, which was the Inagi. As Naruto stared at his handiwork, he formed a ball of blue fire in his hand before firing it up into the night sky, where it exploded as a firework. Meanwhile, further away from the village there was currently 5 Fire Nation battleships anchored out in the middle of the ocean. Their job was waiting for the signal if diplomacy should fail, and it seemed it did as their lookout had just yelled for them to start the engines. Naruto and Mikasa stood still on the beach until people from the village began to come running. They had all heard the blast in the sky, and what they saw horrified them. So many beautiful elephant koi and the protected of their village the Inagi floating around in the ocean dead. You know, this would have been so much easier for you had you just accepted the money. Naruto spoke as he saw the elder of the village come forth. You did all this, but why? Avatar Aang asked as he stepped forward with the girl Katara. For the glory of the Fire Nation, of course. This land will now be used as a military base and trade post, making it easier for my nation to launch attack at the southern shore of Earth Kingdom. That would be why. Naruto spoke as his smile spread as he saw the Avatar getting angry. I will suggest that you leave. My interest is in this island. Well, I will let my brother Zuko deal with you. Naruto spoke and noticed that some of the villagers seemed shocked at this message. He could hear them constantly starting to whisper his name, and when his hands lit up in blue fire, this just confirmed their fears. However, Avatar, if you must insist on fighting, then please do try and give me a challenge. Aang raised his glider into the air and brought it down, sending a powerful air wave towards the smiling Naruto, who simply stood still before it could connect an earth wall raised from the ground. Earthbending? Katara questioned, seeing the wall that had appeared right before them. However, there wasn't much time for questions as Naruto came flying above the wall and down towards Aang, who dodged his first punch. Katara was currently escorting everyone back to the village and tried to get as much distance between them and Naruto as possible. As Naruto tried to head Aang, he realized just how extremely flexible this little boy was. His reflexes wasn't bad either, however, as impressive as those were, he could also see that the Avatar desperately wanted to get some distance, which was something that Naruto denied. And finally Naruto managed to grab a hold of Aang and with a small electric burst, made him see darkness. While Naruto held the unconscious Aang in his hands, he could hear someone scream. Looking to his left, he could see the same kid Sokka that he had already knocked out, once charging at him with a club in his hands. Naruto prepared to deliver him a quick kick to the jaw and sending him to join the Avatar in Dreamland. However, as the boy was charging, he could hear Mikasa scream his name. Now her screaming his name could be fun under certain circumstances, but this time her voice was filled with panic and worry, and Naruto knew that something was about to happen. Looking left, in his hand he held the Avatar. From the front a screaming kid was charging at him, and from the right. Wait, what the fuck? Naruto barely had time to scream in surprise. As a several-ton heavy bison slammed into his sides and sent him flying along the ground. Naruto quickly managed to regain his balance and land on his feet. Tough, he had to admit, getting hit by a flying bison fucking hurt. For your own sake, take the Avatar and leave. I have no intention of hurting the inhabitants of this island, but when my ships arrive they will have no choice but to try and capture the Avatar. Naruto spoke, looking at the brother and sister who was both holding Aang, while the giant bison looked at Naruto with anger in its eyes. Mikasa joined Naruto by his side, and sod began to fall from the sky as behind Naruto Fire Nation ships began to sail into the bay. Sokka, maybe we should do as he says. Katara spoke quickly. She wasn't waiting for her brother's answer as she was already carrying Aang on top of Appa. We can't just leave the people here to the Fire Nation. Sokka protested. He didn't want to abandon Suki. They won't hurt the villagers, but they take Aang. Sokka, we have to leave. Katara spoke firmly, and Sokka looked like he still wanted to fight, and Naruto watched him shake slightly before Sokka ran up the bison's tail. Yip yip Appa. Katara spoke, making the bison take off towards the sky, with Naruto and Mikasa watching from the ground. I've always wanted to see a flying bison, thought they would be bigger though. Naruto spoke as his hand sneaked around Mikasa's waist. Were you hurt? Mikasa spoke as she leaned in against him. Nope, just a small bruise. Now I need to speak with the commander quickly, but then I think we should get back to the inn, and then I will use this all night. Naruto spoke as he grabbed her ass and gave it a good squeeze, causing a blush to spread across Mikasa's face. Next day, Zuko. Zuko bit his lip as he had an overlook over Kaiashi Island. This was where the Avatar was supposed to be staying, but instead, now that they had shoved up, the Fire Nation had a powerful presence on the island. Everywhere they looked they could see their sigil hanging. Multiple Fire Nation ships were already docked in the bay. Prince Zuko, do you still wish us to dock here? The captain asked Zuko now that it was pretty obvious that the Avatar was no longer here. We still need to hear if anyone on the island has any information regarding the Avatar. Zuko spoke as they continued on their path and ended up on the beach. However, as soon as Zuko planted his foot on the island, a sense of dread overcame him. Zuko did a full 180 and went back on his ship. Uncle, go to the village and confirm whether or not Naruto is here. Zuko commanded. He refused to meet Naruto. He hated his older brother's eyes. They would always look at him with a mix of pity and disappointment. He couldn't meet his brother before he had captured the Avatar. But Prince Zuko, why would Naruto be here? Iroh asked. It's just a feeling I have, now hurry. I want to get as far away from here as soon as I can. Zuko spoke as Iroh gave a little sad sigh. He then put down his tea before he left the ship and headed inland. Everyone was busy, walking around with big crates or running around with different tools in their hands. Hello, uncle. Iroh turned around when he heard someone speak, and before him was his oldest nephew Naruto. Naruto, you sure have grown since the last time I saw you, what are you doing here? Iroh asked. You're on Dad's orders, occupying the land, pretty boring actually, I'm leaving later today, but Iroh, if you are here then where is my little brother? Naruto asked as he had hoped to speak with Zuko. I'm afraid that the prince is feeling unwell and has sent me around town to ask for the Avatar, who Zuko had heard would have been on this island. Iroh spoke, while lying about Zuko being ill, afraid that Naruto might charge the ship to speak with Zuko. I see, yes, the Avatar was here, but fled northeast towards Amashu, though I doubt you will be able to follow him there, though there will be a military effort to capture Amashu in a few weeks, if you can wait that long. Anyway, do you want some tea? There is plenty back at the inn where I'm staying. Naruto asked his uncle. No thank you, nephew, Prince Zuko is rather eager to catch the Avatar, and I should head back to the ship, but it was good seeing you, nephew, and you too, Lady Mikasa. Iroh spoke as he gave his nephew a small polite bow. Good to see you too, Iroh. Mikasa spoke. Back in the palace in the Fire Nation, the only people who were good to her were Naruto, Ursa and Iroh. Those three were always kind to her. Very well, uncle, say hello to Zuko from me and wish him well. Naruto spoke as a messenger came running. Your Grace, there is a letter to you from the Fire Lord. A young man spoke as he handed over a scroll to Naruto. I wish both of you a great day. Iroh spoke and left while Naruto was reading the scroll that was just handed to him. Hey Mikasa, you have been invited to a wedding. Naruto spoke, shocking Mikasa. She didn't know anyone who would invite her to a wedding. Whose? She questioned, curious. Mine, apparently. Naruto woke with a small grunt as the first sun rays shined in through the window and landed on his face. Further down along Naruto's body, Mikasa was hard at work waking up Naruto. It was a morning routine they had. Mikasa would usually wake up first and then slither down Naruto's body and wake him in the most pleasurable way possible, and Naruto couldn't complain. He have never had a bad morning so far. Throwing the sheets aside, he see his beautiful Mikasa bobbing her head back and forth on his beat. She only realized that Naruto was awake when she felt his hand stroke her hair. Looking up, Mikasa could see Naruto smile at her. Morning, sweetie. Naruto spoke, placing his hands behind him, keeping him upright. Morning, Naruto. Mikasa simply spoke as she quickly removed her mouth from his beep before she started to lick it. Today is the day we are going home, are you excited? Naruto questioned. As soon as they return there is going to be grand meeting. From the letter Naruto received, there would be roughly 100 women for him to meet, and then he would have to choose one of them to marry. Sounds exhausting, really. I suppose it would be nice to see Lady Ursa again. Mikasa spoke, her lips barely leaving his beep. Her answer bringing a small smile on Naruto's lips. He was happy that there was someone else than him that Mikasa could talk with at court, and his mother was a gently soul, kind and beautiful. I see, Mikasa, you are neglecting my balls. Naruto reminded, and as soon as she realized her mistake she went even lower down. It was good being a crown prince. Roughly 1 hour later. Naruto and Mikasa sat outside the inn that they had made their temporarily home and were eating breakfast. As they sat there they watched the Fire Nation soldiers walk around working. A few of the people who used to live here were being put in chains and was deported to other workstations all over the Fire Nation. Some would stay here. There was a nice peace and quiet for all of 2 seconds. You coward. Naruto and Mikasa's attention was caught by a young woman who had shouted those words towards Naruto. Do we know her? Naruto questioned Mikasa as they watched the girl get pushed by a soldier. I think she was the leader of the warriors on this island. Mikasa spoke. Before they both quickly lost interest in her and returned to their breakfast. Suki, watching them both simply ignoring her, pissed her off. When the soldier behind her once again placed his hand on her shoulder to push her, she decided that enough was enough and grabbed his arm and threw him over her shoulder, making him land on his back with a gasp. Not wasting any time, she instantly charged at Naruto, who simply watched the enraged woman coming right at him. When she was right in front of him, her attack was however brought to a grinding halt as 4 earth pillars had shot up from the ground around her and completely restrained her ability to move. As she struggled to get free she was quickly surrounded by spears that were pointed towards her face by other Fire Nation soldiers. Forgive me, your grace, I got careless. The soldier that Suki had thrown down on his back spoke to Naruto with a deep bow. It's quite alright, but do tell me, where is this girl going? Naruto questioned. He did have a mild curiosity. This once will be spending her days working in an oil refinery in Yudao. The soldier explained. Oh, aren't you lucky? Yudao is an absolutely beautiful city. Did you know it is our very first colony here in the Earth Kingdom? Naruto asked Suki, but she didn't respond. Instead he had to dodge when Suki decided to spit after him. You are a dishonorable liar. You said you were her on a diplomatic mission. Suki yelled at him right in his face. Yeah, you see, I lied. Naruto openly admitted, shocking her. Before he with one hand dismissed her, the earth pillars there was restraining her movements went back into the ground as the soldier grabbed her and was about to force her to move. I demand a rematch. She yelled as she was being forced away. However, instead of Naruto responding to her challenge, he just smiled at her. I have a great time. He spoke, just pissing Suki even more off, knowing he was taunting her. As Suki got further away from Naruto, she could feel her hope dwindling. There had to be some way to fight him, some way to get Kyoshi Island back. She didn't care what she had to do, and then it hit her. There was something she could try. She wasn't sure if he would react to it, but it was her only idea. I challenge you to an Anaikai. Suki yelled. When the words left her lips, the island became dead quiet. The soldiers around her all looked at each other, confused what they were supposed to do. However, Naruto quickly settled it as he stood up and approached them. Very well. I accept your challenge. Naruto spoke. To Suki it was clear that he didn't try to taunt or be funny anymore. Right now he was more serious. First tell me why you demand this Anaikai. Naruto spoke as his eyes stared down at her. I'm the leader of the warriors on this island, but tricked by you and knocked unconscious. This is a great insult to me. Therefore I also ask that if I win, that the Fire Nation leave this island and never return. Suki spoke, staring right back at Naruto, her eyes filled with determination. I accept the fight, and if you win you will prove that my method in winning this island was dishonorable. However, if you want us to leave this island, you must have to put something on the line of equal value if you were to lose. Naruto spoke as he stared at her with a small smile. This island was going to be built up from scrap and was going to become an important new outpost for the Fire Nation. Naruto doubted that she could have something of equal value. I can only offer myself. If you win this fight, then I will serve you for the rest of my life as your slave. That I promise on my honor as a Kyoshi warrior. She spoke as she continued to stare up at Naruto. However, as she spoke those words, Mikasa could also be heard choking on her food. While Naruto was considering her offer, he was going to win, that he was 100% sure on. What he was thinking about was if he even wanted her as a slave. Very well, I accept. Naruto spoke as the soldiers quickly left, leaving only the two of them to have the town square as their battleground. Do you even know the rules of an Anaikai? Naruto asked her before they began, to which she shook her head. Very well, it's simple really, weapons aren't allowed, and firebending is the only bending allowed. You win by making your opponent surrender, burn him or knock him unconscious. Naruto explained, and Suki could already feel a huge disadvantage by looking at the rules. With no weapons, she only had her fists and feet to fight with, while Naruto had everything, but still she refused to back down. As they once again stared at each other preparing to fight, they were surrounded by silence as everyone around had gathered to fight. The people who once had lived on the island of course believed that Suki would win as she was the strongest fighter they knew, while the Fire Nation soldiers all pitied the girl. Not many men soldiers had ever seen their crown prince fight, but the stories they heard had been enough, and according to them he was an absolute monster. So are you going to attack or not? Naruto questioned Suki, who just continued to stare at him. Maybe she was hoping he would just get a heart attack and die. And just like that, Suki came charging at him. When she was right in front of him, Naruto threw a quick open-handed punch right at her face, which she easily dodged beneath. With her quick reflexes, she managed to deliver a quick punch in his armpit and knee him in the stomach before she quickly gained distance again. Really, that is your tactic? Hit and run? Oh come now, do make this more interesting. Naruto spoke clearly unaffected. Before he calmly began walking towards Suki, who instantly tried to regain more distance. Fine, then I force you to come closer. Naruto spoke as a wall of blue fire formed behind Suki and approached her, forcing her forward. She couldn't jump to the sides either, the flames were there as well. Her eyes were focused on both the flames burning around her and on the person controlling the flames. When she was close enough, she ran away from the flames surrounding her in a quick sprint, hoping to catch Naruto by surprise, and just as she wished, Naruto tried to counter her by raising one leg and aimed a kick towards her chest. She was so lucky he underestimated him, and with that she managed to catch his leg and held his leg high in the air. Naruto was still calm, wondering what she was trying to do. Her sadistic smile was quite amusing, and then it happened as she was right in front of Naruto holding of his legs. Suki raised her own leg, and with all the force she could she kicked Naruto right between the legs. A hard thud could be heard throughout the town square, and all men watching cringed. It hurt just by looking. There was a small silence from both Suki and Naruto. Suki had a clear sign of pain plastered on her face as she slowly pulled her leg back from Naruto's crotch area. Looking up to Naruto's face, realizing that she was still right in front of him, she felt a cold chill of terror run down her back as Naruto sent her the biggest shit-eating grin that she had ever seen. The next thing that she knew she was sent flying away from him with a great force. Aiming for a man's most holy place, how truly desperate you must be. Naruto spoke in an amused voice. But how about that we cut this short? Naruto asked her. Confused, Suki raised herself from the ground to look at Naruto. However, something was wrong this time as she stared at him once again. The world around her began to disappear, the only thing that remained was the blonde man around her, and she wasn't able to focus on anything else. Suki, I want you to surrender. His voice was different in her ears, hot and terrifying, as if it was melting her brain. Her feet began to shake uncontrollably. He was without a doubt no man, but a demon. Suki, trust me, put aside your fears, go to sleep, and when you wake up everything will be as it was. Naruto continued, his words so incredible persuasive to her ears. Her eyes felt heavy as Naruto approached her. She no longer had any intention of fighting him, and she just wanted to rest. When she felt Naruto's hands cup her cheek and indescribable warmth filled her body, a blush spread across her face through her dizzy, tired eyes. She could see Naruto stare at her with his beautiful sea blue eyes. That's it, Suki, relax now, don't worry, I'll protect you. Naruto spoke, and those were the last words she heard before her eyes rolled back in her head and fell into Naruto's arms. What everyone else saw, however, was quite different. After Suki had kicked Naruto in the crotch, he had blown her away with a hard punch, and then Suki had quickly raised herself from the ground, but she just stood still, her eyes zoning out, and Naruto had approached her. When he grabbed her shoulder, Suki collapsed in his hands. Alright, easy victory, Mikasa, come, it's time to go home. Naruto spoke in his usual tone as he lunged the unconscious Suki over his shoulder. 8 hours later. Slowly Suki's eyes fluttered open, she felt at peace. Slowly she sat up and noticed that she was inside a big room. The room felt like it was moving slightly. Raising herself even further, she managed to look outside a window. The only thing outside was the clear ocean, then sun slowly on its way down over the horizon, leaving an orange sky. And then she realized where she was and what had happened. What the hell did he do to her? It all felt so serene and yet so terrifying. Looking around the room, she assumed that it was Naruto's cabinet. How luxurious it was. The entire floor was covered by a soft snow-white rug, and beautiful paintings covered the wall. The left side of the room was completely dedicated to his family, as his family tree hung there. She was a slave now. She promised to serve him if he won on her honor as a Kaioshin warrior, and she refused to whine about it now, but she still hoped that everyone on the island was safe. The door then opened up, and she saw the blonde crown prince and the girl Mikasa attending to his side like always. Walk in. Good morning. I was beginning to fear that you had planned to sleep the entire day away. Naruto spoke with a smile as he approached her. What did you do to me in the fight? What happened? She questioned, curious. Me? I did nothing at all. You on the other hand was hallucinating quite badly. The heat must have gone to your head, but that's quite normal when fighting me. Don't worry about it. Tell you what, I go grab something for us to eat, and Mikasa can stay here and answer all your questions. You must be hungry by now, right? Naruto asked her, but instead of her mouth it was her stomach who answered for her with a deep growl. Hope Raymond is okay. Naruto spoke as he quickly left. His eyes seemed to sparkle as he talked about Raymond. As the door closed, she was left in the room with Mikasa. She was about to turn towards Mikasa, but instead felt a fist collide with her stomach, knocking all the air out of her, bending over in pain. Mikasa grabbed her hair and forced her eyes to meet Mikasa's. First thing, you will address him as master unless he allows you to call him anything else. Secondly, you will do anything he asks of you without hesitation, and thirdly, if you embarrass him or hurt him in any way, then I will kill you. Her grey eyes looking at her as if she wasn't even alive. Suki could only nod, and with that Mikasa let go of her, and they waited in silence for Naruto to return. The moment Naruto walked back in, Mikasa seemed to brighten up, almost like a dog waiting for their owner to come back home. The food will be here shortly. Is anything wrong? Naruto questioned. The tension in the air seemed unusual high. No, nothing is wrong. Mikasa spoke as she hugged Naruto and kissed his cheek. What about you, Suki, are anything wrong? Naruto questioned once again. No, master. She spoke in a low tone, the master part clearly surprising Naruto. Well, that was quickly. You accepted that role, but you can call me Naruto when it's just us three. Naruto told her, usually a slave only called their owner master, everything else could be a sign of weakness, thus Mikasa also referred to Naruto as master when in public. Mikasa, what have you talked with Suki about? Naruto questioned, suspicious. I merely told her what there was expected of her. Mikasa murmured as she snuggled in closer to Naruto and buried her face in his neck. Mikasa, did you hurt her? Naruto asked again. To this question Mikasa raised her hand and made a small gap between two fingers as to show that she only hurt her a little. Then I want you to apologize to her. Naruto spoke sternly. Mikasa slowly let go of Naruto and turned around and bowed to Suki. I apologize for hitting you, it won't happen again. Mikasa spoke, and when it seemed like Suki accepted the apology, Mikasa quickly went back to Naruto's side. Now Suki, I hope that you like the clothes, and please do tell if the collar is too tight. Naruto spoke, much to Suki's shock. It was first now she realized she was only wearing a red robe and a collar had been placed around her neck, much to her humiliation. Is a collar really necessary? Suki questioned. She really would like to get it off. It is. What if you get lost or you run away from home by accident, then people would be able to see where you belong. Don't worry, like Mikasa, one day I will trust you enough to take it off. Naruto assured her. Shortly afterwards the food arrived along with a small scroll for Naruto. After they had eaten, Naruto quickly read through the scroll. As he continued reading, his eyes became sharp and the temperature slightly rose in the room, showing he wasn't happy with the message. Alright. We are going to be slightly delayed a day or two. According to the message, all the earthbenders working on one of our offshore fuel station rebelled and killed a few of our men, including the warden. Naruto spoke in a grim tone. According to the message, the earthbenders had thrown fully armored soldiers into the ocean and letting them drown, even after the warden had pleaded to spare him. The earthbenders had then escaped into the woods. Suki felt slightly conflicted. She was happy that someone was fighting against the Fire Nation, but the way the earthbenders killed them wasn't okay. Naruto then used the rest of the evening to show her around the ship. This ship was only used for the supreme commander of the Fire Nation army and thus was only ever used for Naruto. The ship itself was huge and was categorized as an Empire-class battleship. The ship he had used to arrive in Kaiashi was a lot smaller and was actually stored inside this ship. A ship shipping a ship. When they all returned to Naruto's cabin, the biggest challenge yet awaited Suki. The moon was high above the sky and it was time for bed. Well, Suki was scared and didn't know what would happen. She began hearing a small sound, turning around. Naruto and Mikasa had already begun a small passionate kissing section. It didn't take long before they started to pull at each other's clothes and Suki just tried to hide herself in a corner of the room and hope they forget about her. No such luck though. Suki, do you want to join us? Naruto asked. She turned around to answer him, but instead her words got caught in her throat because of what she saw. He was already naked and a huge monster was pointing out into the air. The Inagi returns. Naruto could barely hold in his laughter as he saw her face looking like a tomato and decided to tease her even more. What's wrong, Suki? Are you feeling sick? Naruto asked as he walked closer to her. Well, Suki couldn't remove her eyes from his shaft. With each step it bounced up and down with each step he took. Suki tried to answer him, but every time she opened her mouth she could only stutter. He was right in front of her, his beak pressing against her stomach. She was caught by surprise, however, when Naruto kissed her forehead. Don't worry, I won't force it upon you. Naruto assured, and Suki felt like a giant burden had been lifted from her shoulder. She knew she was a slave, and if he wanted to have sex with her, he had a right to. As Naruto turned away from her, a giant smile could be seen on his face. True, he would never force her to sleep with him against her will, but he was still going to tease her like crazy. Lemon happened. After the ordeal they were both covered in sweat and Mikasa was just a few seconds from falling asleep while Naruto was catching his breath. Did you enjoy the show? Naruto managed to ask through his ragged breath. Did I have to watch that? Suki questioned, trying to avoid his eyes. Yeah, it's educational. Naruto made up a stupid excuse. By the way, are you sure you don't want to try it? You won't know whether or not you like it before you try it. Naruto offered. Can I pass on that? Suki asked, to which Naruto gave a little disappointed sigh. Sure, come here then, you be sleeping with me and Mikasa. Naruto said as Suki slowly approached the bed. Naruto then yanked her and forced her to relax with her head on one of his shoulders while Mikasa was on the other. This is nice. Naruto muttered as he closed his eyes and waited for sleep to overtake him. Next morning. Slowly Suki opened her. She was laying so well she didn't want to get up, but her eyes shot open when she realized where she was, on top of Naruto, her head on his shoulder. She was about to carefully get out of bed, however, when the bed made the smallest of creak. Mikasa's eyes shot wide open, as if she was on constant alarm. Good morning. Suki spoke in a low tone to her fellow slave, but received no reply. Instead, Mikasa gave Naruto a quick peck on the cheek before she disappeared down beneath the sheets. At first her actions confused Suki, then however she began to realize what Mikasa could possibly be doing. Her thoughts were confirmed when Naruto gave a small grunt, then a small snicker, and finally a big dumb grin as he opened his eyes. For Suki, this was to be her first complete day as a slave. She had honestly thought it would be worse, not that she was going to point that out. Suki started the day by having a bath, and Naruto and Mikasa jumped in and had one together afterwards. Then they all had breakfast. The food could only be described as 100 times better than what she used to have at the island. They then arrived at a small harbor where the incident with the earthbenders had taken place. As they docked and was about to leave ship, Naruto turned to her. Suki, you will remain here. Naruto spoke, shocking her. She wanted to come along. What, why? She questioned. Because you are my slave and will have to do as I say, that's it. Naruto spoke before he continued off the boat along with Mikasa, leaving a lonely Suki behind. Why spare her the sight? She would have to see it one day either way. Mikasa spoke as she knew that Naruto had planned on killing a lot of people. I want her to get a good impression of me, as I always say, a happy slave makes a happy master. Naruto spoke as he held Mikasa's hand. Walking around the small Fire Nation settlement, they could see a small defense had been set up to defend them from the Earthbenders. Finding who was in charge quickly informed Naruto of the situation. Roughly 400 Earthbenders had escaped after rebelling and destroying their fuel station, and right now they were just a little further to the east hiding in the woods. We have already sent a report to the homeland asking for reinforcements so that we can deal with those murders. The old leader of the settlement explained to Naruto. Don't worry about it, I will deal with them personally. If they are as close as you say, then it will barely take half an hour. Naruto spoke with confidence. You Grace, I don't doubt your abilities, but it's 400 we are talking about, and if your father should learn that he already left. The old man muttered sadly to himself. While Naruto and Mikasa walked through the forest, they managed to quickly find the Earthbenders' temporary headquarters, mostly because there was a trail of dead Fire Nation soldier leading there. Naruto walked alone into the clearing and managed to gain everyone's attention, while Mikasa was hiding back in the forest red to create some confusion if Naruto needed it. Hello everyone. Naruto began off. The fuck does a Fire Nation should want with us? A random Earthbender yelled out, his red armor easily giving him away. Meanwhile Naruto's eyes were currently looking all over the place, there was nowhere near 400, maybe just the half. Which one here is the leader? Naruto continued ignoring the question he had been given. Naruto's question was answered when an absolute mountain of a man stood up and walked towards Naruto, easily double his size. What do you want with me, little man? The giant questioned. He stood right in front of Naruto and looked down upon him. What I want is to kill everyone here. Naruto spoke before he threw a heavy punch hitting the giant man in the ribs. He could feel his fist easily breaking a few of them. The other Earthbenders barely got to react before Naruto sent out two big blue bursts of flames, quickly covering quite a few of the Earthbenders. While those who was quicker and managed to jump to the side believed they were safe only to find that the flames seemed to have a will of their own and tracked them all down. As soon as his flames had made contact with anyone, even if it was just a small flame that had touched the pants, the flame would from there quickly spread until it completely covered its target, and the leader watched in terror how all the men he had spent so much time with was all slaughtered by one guy in less than 20 seconds. It didn't take long before the last screams died out and there was just the leader left in front of Naruto. There was supposed to be more of you, if you tell me quickly might consider sparing your life. Naruto spoke coldly as he raised two fingers covered in lightning in front of the man's face. We split up, they wanted a new life in Galing. The man spoke quickly to save his own skin. Thank you, you can go ahead and die now. Naruto spoke, shocking the man and causing him to pee himself. But, you said. But I will consider. Naruto spoke before he sent a lightning bolt through the man's skull and he fell to the ground dead. Say Mikasa, where is it Galing is? I can't remember. Naruto asked honestly as he left the clearing that began to smell of burning flesh. Further south of here, it's a village with no really strategic value, but with plenty of Earthbenders, thus the Fire Nation has never really seen any reason to invade there, as the losses they would suffer aren't worth the city. The leader of the Galing, the Beifrong family, one of the richest in the Earth Kingdom. Mikasa spoke as if she was an open book. Well, if it's that much south, then it will have to wait until I visit home, and I will have to bring an army too if an occupation is necessary. Naruto spoke as he grabbed Mikasa's hand and they returned to the ship. Unknown to Naruto, that little detour would spark many news stories about him when the cleanup crew arrived in the forest and saw that their prince had single-handedly killed off 200 Earthbenders. The day would be the last day in the Earth Kingdom for now, and tomorrow he would finally get home. He did miss his family, his dear little sister most of all. Suki, can you smell that? Naruto asked as he along with Suki and Mikasa stood on the ship's deck. They had crossed into Fire Nation water for a little more than an hour now. No, I don't smell anything, what do you mean? Suki questioned. There was nothing in the air. Are you telling me you can't smell that glorious Fire Nation air? Smells like home. Naruto proclaimed, making Suki roll her eyes. Hey, is that a volcano? Suki questioned as she saw a small mountain in the distance. There were a few volcanoes scattered around in the Earth Kingdom, but the Fire Nation was supposed to be full with them. She had always wanted to see one. Naruto, noticing the volcano in the distance, slowly lifted his hand, shocking both Suki and a few people aboard the ship, as tremors could be felt all the way from the volcano until it began smoking, spewing ashes into the air. Did you just make that volcano erupt? Suki questioned, slightly terrified. That volcano looked to be multiple miles away, a small dot in the distance. I did, don't worry though, it's perfectly safe, it stopped in a couple of minutes. Now instead try and look at that. Naruto said, pointing to Suki's left. Turning her head, she was able to see a humongous statue of a man standing in the middle of the water. What is that? That's a statue of my grandfather Azulon. It showed that we will soon arrive at the great gates of Azulon in about 10 minutes. Naruto spoke before they all returned to his cabin. When they walked inside there was a box lying on his bed. Oh, it arrived. Suki, try and open the box. Naruto told her. Suki was skeptical as she approached the box. She had been with Naruto a couple of days now, either he tried to get her into bed with him or he tried to prank her. She wouldn't be surprised if she opened the box and some fake snakes jumped up. Now that she stood by the edge of the bed, she grabbed the top of the box and slowly lifted it off and was shocked by the contents. Inside she saw her weapons from when she was a Kaioshin warrior, her katana and 2 fans. These were yours, right? Naruto questioned as she watched Suki look at them dumbstruck. They are, yes. Suki muttered, they were ancient. They had been passed down from the leader of Kaioshin warrior for 400 years, ever since Avatar Kaioshin separated their island from the mainland. Good, Mikasa. Naruto spoke as Mikasa quickly went over beside Suki and closed the box on again before taking it under one arm. Wait, aren't they for me? Suki asked, those weapons meant a lot to her. No, I will get some new one made for you. Well, these will be a gift to my little sister. Naruto said as Mikasa handed the box to Naruto and there was an announcement over the speakers that they had now docked in the harbor. Naruto, please, they have an amazing historical value. Suki pleaded. I know that. Naruto simply told her and Suki saw no other option but to lock onto his leg. Please Naruto, I'd do anything you say, but don't give them away. Suki pleaded she wanted her weapons back. She remembered when she was handed them by the previous owner, she promised to treasure and take care of them before passing them on again. Suki, you are already my slave, you will have to do anything I say no matter what. Naruto pointed out as he tried to throw Suki off his leg. Peace Naruto, I beg of you, please. It was first when Naruto saw a single tear that he gave up. He hated when girls cried, and when it was his fault it was even worse. Suki lit up like the sun when Naruto handed her the box. Naruto, what about Lady Azula? Mikasa whispered into his ear while they both watched a happy Suki pack her things out and try her weapons. I guess I will have to improvise. Naruto whispered back. When they left the ship, there was a massive crowd gathered outside, and Suki saw Naruto give them all of them his warmest smile. Does this always happen when you are gone? Suki questioned Naruto as both she and Mikasa walked right behind him. Yeah, always, and this time I was only gone for a little more than a week. Well, besides that they also show up because when I come back they know I bring good news, and true enough the capture of Kaioshin Island is going to be quite a help for our future expansions. Naruto spoke as they continued walking towards the palace. Suki noticing that the horde of people were keeping their distance while watching them walk past, but she also noted that while there was a few, there wasn't especially many guards. Naruto, aren't you afraid of being assassinated? Suki questioned due to the lack security. When Naruto heard her question he had to fight back his laughter. Suki, this is our capital, there is nothing here but peace and prosperity. Even if by some miracle an assassin got into our capital, I'm sure they would rather try to settle down here than complete their mission and return home. Stay a day or two and you see. Naruto spoke confidently. As they moved further towards the palace the presence of guards began to rise and a lot of different banners were hanging around. Naruto also seemed quite curious in those. Noble houses, all here with someone I can end up marrying. Naruto spoke while Suki studied the banners, there were many all with different original design. Fire Palace. This place is huge. Suki couldn't help but point out. So far the Fire Nation had been amazing, everything here was bigger. They waited for no more than a few seconds outside the main gates before they started to open up, revealing a young woman by the door. Welcome home dear brother. Azula spoke as she took a step outside to greet Naruto. When she was close enough Naruto hugged her. It's good to be home Azula, how have you been? Naruto asked her as he kissed both her cheeks, giving Azula a small blush. I'm afraid that it has been dreadfully boring back here. Dad has been forcing me to interact with all nobles who have arrived, a bunch of ass kissers, the lot of them really. Azula spoke and Naruto couldn't help but to give a small chuckle. Well, as long as you are fine, then I'm happy. However, I'm afraid that Kaioshin was an awfully blank place and I couldn't find anything to bring back as a souvenir. Naruto apologized. He had been off to the Earth Kingdom quite a few times and every time he had brought a small gift back home to Azula. Doesn't look like all boring to me. Azula said as her eyes landed on Suki and the collar she wore. Girl, come and introduce yourself. Naruto spoke harshly, surprising Suki as she hadn't heard him use that tone before. Stepping forward besides Naruto, she introduced herself. I'm Suki, it's a pleasure to meet you. Suki introduced herself and extended her hand. Azula however didn't take it, instead she just looked at the hand passively. Ahahaha, sorry sister, please forgive her, you know how primitive they are over in the Earth Kingdom, I haven't gotten around to teaching her any manners yet. Naruto said as he scratched his head. Mikasa, show Suki to my room. I will most likely first return tonight. Naruto spoke as Azula had grabbed his hand and had begun dragging him away. Did I say something wrong? Suki asked Mikasa as they both watched Naruto being dragged further away. That was Princess Azula, you were supposed to bow, show your respect and finish your sentence with your grace. Mikasa lectured her before she gave Suki a small push, forcing her further inside the palace. As they moved through the palace, Suki noticed that many of the people wandering around inside, the maids, butlers and guards, were all sending both her and Mikasa dirty looks. Say, Mikasa, are you sure this is the right place? I don't think they like us being here. Suki said as she noticed some guards tightening their grips on their weapons when they walked by. Get used to it, most in this palace watch us as part of the enemy. The Fire Nation has lost many soldiers in this war as well. Mikasa spoke before she came to a sudden halt. Suki didn't realize this and bumped straight into her. Mikasa, paying her no mind, took forth a key from her pocket and unlocked the door in front of her. Suki was barely even surprised at this point, everything in the Fire Nation was bigger than back home, even Naruto's room was the size of a standard home. At the end of the room the bed stood in the middle, with see-through drapes hanging from the ceiling surrounding the bed. There was also several paintings of Naruto, his family and a few of Naruto and Mikasa together. Walking around exploring the place she would be staying now, she felt like if she destroyed a single thing she would have to work her entire life to pay it off. It was all so fancy, not that it appealed to her it was a little too much even for royalty. There were fine tables which stood and held fruit bowls and different drinks. Thankfully there was one with water, since she wasn't a big fan of alcohol. There were two more doors inside his room, opening the first door she saw a training room with different machines. Something told her she would spend a lot of time in here whenever Naruto and Mikasa would get busy on the bed. Walking towards the second door, there was a toilet and a sink, that's it. Meanwhile Naruto and Azula were walking hand in hand towards the main hall, where their father and mother was waiting for them. Tell me, Azula, you have seen the girls, what were they like? Naruto questioned incuriously. Yes, I have spoken with some of them were pretty I suppose, though none of them could compare to me. I spoke a little with the oldest woman here to seek your hand. She is a widow 32 years old, from a small noble house, and not even that pretty. Azula commentated and Naruto let out a small nervous laugh. Yes, I suppose that might be a little too old for me, was there anyone among them that you knew? Naruto asked. Azula had studied at the Royal Fire Academy for girls, there must be quite a few of the girls that Azula once went to class with there had to be here. The few, Mai is here, she used to visit a lot until her father got stationed in the Earth Kingdom, all of Ty Lee's sisters are here as well, there are a few others that I know, but none of them except Mai, I would call a friend. Azula spoke as they continued down the hall until they came to the big gates leading into the main hall. I see, well hopefully this won't take too long, do you know how many there are? Naruto asked as he stretched his muscles and the gates in front of them were about to open. There are exactly 93 families here all, however some of the families bring more than one girl for you to marry, so around 150 women. Azula spoke and Naruto knew this was going to be a pain, he was going to pick a single one out of that many, but he loved all pretty girls. When the gates in front of them had opened up, they both walked into the main hall in silence, their mother and father were both waiting high above behind a curtain of flames. Naruto, my son, welcome home. I spoke with kindness that he had always showed Naruto. Thank you father, mother, it's good to see you both again, my mission on Kaiashi Island went smoothly without any problem. Naruto spoke, however the slight twist in Ozai's facial expression indicated there was something that he was curious about. Is that so? Well, we will talk about your small conquest later, as for now I believe we have let our guests wait long enough. Azula, you may leave. Father, my dear brother invited me to take part in this, even as Naruto only believes that it's fair that I will get to see who will become my new sister. Azula spoke as she made up a lie on the moment, sending a small look towards Naruto out of the corner of her eye, asking him to play along. And Naruto, as any loving brother would, Naruto played his part. Only if it's okay with you father, of course. Naruto spoke. Shortly after, both Naruto and Azula joined their parents on the throne behind the flames. Shortly after, a very old man came walking in with a staff in one hand and a clipboard in the other hand. This was old man Kuzan, who had severed the royal family right from when Azulon became Fire Lord. He was even a little older than Lee and Lo. On the thrones, Naruto sat in the middle between his mother and father. His father on the left of him and his mother on the right, while Azula sat on the right of their mother. They all watched as the old man slowly walked across the room until he got to the wall where there was a pillow for him to kneel on. Hey, are we ready? Kuzan asked with a low gentle voice. When Ozai nodded at him, the gates opened up and Kuzan introduced the first family to walk through the gates. Except for Kuzan, who introduced the families walking through the gates, the only ones to speak was Ozai and the head of the noble family visiting. The only thing Naruto had to do was to look and judge whether or not he liked the girl, while Ursa and Azula just sat quietly. It took roughly 5 minutes for the first family, while Ozai was asking about things such as, education, age, diseases, hobbies, talents and other family members, and as expected the head of the noble family answered all the questions flawlessly. When the family left, Kuzan looked up at Naruto. "Your Grace, should I take note of the girl?" he asked. "No, don't bother." Naruto answered. He had tried to gain eye contact with her, but had shied away from his eyes every time went on. His family came and represented their daughter to Naruto and then left. There had been so many beautiful women for him to pick, and quite a few of them he wouldn't mind getting to know a little better in private, but still there was no one who had truly captured his interest. The only girl that had been noted so far was Mai, and that was only because that if there truly were no one else, then maybe he could build something with Mai. If he didn't note anyone, chances are his dad would just pick someone random. Harem family number 69. The Fall family from the island of Mistral. Kuzan introduced as the gates opened once again as an elderly couple, along with an outstanding beautiful women came walking in. Their daughter had a shen black hair and amber-colored eyes, both which was quite common in the Fire Nation. She was wearing a small crimson-colored mini-dress, with a golden design running down both her arms. "Fire Lord Oz, I allow me to present my daughter, Cinder Fall." Naruto listened with half an ear as he watched Cinder. Unlike the others, she stared right back at him. A small smirk adorned her lips, however it was when Naruto believed he saw her eyes gleam at him he was sold. Naruto's eyes followed Cinder when their audience was done. He watched Cinder slowly turn her face and gave him a wink before she left the room, her eyes still shining. "Take note of her." Naruto spoke as quickly as they were gone, surprising the rest in the room. "Why, there was nothing special about her?" Azula asked, but was met with a quick order of being silent by her father. The rest were pretty boring. Cinder was the one who had caught his attention, while the majority of the remaining girls were dolls who were good at nodding. When they were done with the audiences, all that were left was for Naruto to choose who he wanted. A small smile adorned his face. He already knew who he wanted. Earth Kingdom sees. "What do you mean Naruto is going to marry?" Zuko yelled at his uncle who was reading from a scroll in his hands. "Give me that." Zuko continued to yell as he snapped the scroll out of his uncle's hands. Cinder Fall of the Fire Nation Island Mistral. Zuko muttered as he read about her. The wedding was to be held at some point in the summer, which meant the wedding was still a small half-year away. Along with the scroll there were also a painting of Cinder, showing the Fire Nation what their new soon-to-be princess looked like. "She sounds like a beautiful and kind lady, a good match for your older brother, wouldn't you say so?" Iroh asked. While Zuko remained skeptical, he could only learn so much from a scroll. Fire Nation Royal Palace. Suki wasn't sure what she expected. She had somehow thought that now Naruto had gotten a fiancé, that he and Mikasa's fun would stop, but that didn't seem to be the case as Mikasa was laying on her back on the back while Naruto was sweeping the sweat of his forehead. "Ah, that was fun," Naruto said as he fell on top of Mikasa. While both Naruto and Mikasa were snuggling on the bed and Suki was watching, there was a knock on the door. Who the hell was visiting so late? The hour was already past midnight. With a tired groan, Naruto raised from the bed much to Mikasa's dismay and dressed himself, while Mikasa just covered herself in the bed sheets. Naruto didn't even make it to the door before it opened by itself and Azula came walking. "Sister, what a pleasant surprise." Naruto spoke, but Azula didn't pay Naruto much mind and instead walked right past him. "Forgive me for coming so late, but I was unable to sleep and heard noises coming from your room, so I assumed you weren't sleeping either. I just wanted to meet your newest toy." Azula spoke as her amber eyes locked onto Suki. Suki looked down on the ground as Azula walked around her. She threw a quick glimpse towards Naruto for help, but he simply sat in a chair with an apple in his hands and looked out the window, watching the city. Mikasa wasn't likely to help either as she was relaxing in the bed. "She doesn't look special, Naruto. Why did you make this thing your slave?" Azula asked, and while Suki just stood still and accepted being called a thing, well, at least she was Naruto's slave and not this girl's. "I didn't. She practically begged to be my slave. She challenged me to an Anikai, and if she lost she was willing to become my slave." Naruto spoke and Azula threw one quick last look at Suki. "So she is an idiot," Azula stated before she went over to Naruto and sat herself in his lap. "Naruto, I have heard that you are planning to attack a small Earth Kingdom city and were wondering if I can come along." Azula asked as she sat in his lap looking Naruto straight in the eyes, and Azula already what he was going to say. Naruto never told her no to anything. "Sorry Azula, but no, I don't want you to come along," Naruto said, and he could instantly see on her face that she wasn't satisfied with his answer. "What, why not? I'm one of the greatest firebenders in the world, it would be a mistake not to bring me along." Azula spoke in anger, however, as she continued to sit on Naruto's lap, she could feel Naruto beginning to heat up. It continued to the point that Azula was forced to jump off him. "I'm under no obligations to answer to you Azula, now if you are done, please leave me and my slaves desire some sleep." Naruto spoke with a small smile on his lips, while Azula looked cool and collected on the outside she was furious on the inside. Sorry Azula, but I'm not bringing you onto a battlefield. I love you too much and would be worried sick. Naruto said as he grabbed one of his hands with his own, and his words also seemed to dull Azula's wrath and replaced it with a bit embarrassment. Very well, oh and one last thing. Father demands that you will have dinner with us tomorrow after your visit with the war minister. You will be seated next to Cinder, so father also demands that you wear your hair the proper fashion of a Fire Nation crown prince, along with formal clothes. Azula spoke and Naruto could already feel his future headache. He hated getting his hair done, he liked to have it free, and he hated formal clothes too. Simple was so much more comfortable, and his slaves weren't allowed to dine with the rest of his family, therefore Naruto usually ate in his room with Mikasa, as to not leave her alone. Of course, tell dad I'd be there. Naruto spoke and Azula was just about to leave, but threw one last look over her shoulder. I still find it hard to believe that you would let those savages sleep in your bed, they should both be happy with the floor. Azula spoke and with that last remark she left the room. Suki. Naruto spoke and gained her attention. Yes. Suki had been on her guard the entire moment Azula had been in the room, and as soon as she had left Naruto had spoken her name catching her off guard. Aren't you happy you are my slave now? Naruto asked with a smile and Suki realized what he meant. She wasn't happy about being a slave, but she was happy that at least it wasn't someone like Azula. I suppose. Suki answered before Naruto grabbed hand and pulled her down into his lap, where Azula had previously sat. Her face turned red when Naruto's hands cupped her cute small butt. What are you doing? Suki asked and before she even realized it, Mikasa had snuck up behind her and grabbed her breasts through her cloth. Mikasa? She asked shocked, but when both parties began to fondle her, she couldn't help but release a small moan. Say Suki, have you ever kissed anyone before? Naruto questioned Suki whose eyes were currently shut. I have kissed one boy on the cheek, does that count? Suki asked Naruto whose hand slowly left her butt and instead slowly trailed up her lower back. No, not really, but that makes me happy, so I can have your first kiss right? Naruto asked and without warning Suki felt Naruto pressing his lips against hers. She couldn't help but moan into the kiss as Mikasa and Naruto continued to play with her body. The kiss didn't last for long as Naruto pulled back. The second one is for Mikasa. Naruto said and it took a second for Suki to come out of her shock before she realized what Naruto just said. She didn't get a chance to say anything before Mikasa grabbed her chin, turned her head, and forced her lips onto Suki's. Suki was shocked when she was once again pulled into a kiss, but with Mikasa there was something wrong, because Mikasa had decided to kiss her the same way she and Naruto always kissed, and that meant that Suki was shocked as she could feel Mikasa forcing her tongue into her mouth. Meanwhile Naruto was just enjoying the sight in front of him. Life was good. Next day evening. The day had gone quite smoothly. He had started the day off by having a meeting with War Minister Kin, who wished to show Naruto his latest toy. It was a giant drill that was created with the sole purpose of penetrating the Great Walls of Ba Sing Se. It would however first be deployed when they had conquered Amashu and was able to create a safe route for the drill to arrive on. Then there was the dinner, a pain in the ass really, when Naruto had to get ready. The dinner itself however went smoothly. It was decided that Cinder was to stay in the palace, while the rest of her family will return home to Mistral. They would first return when it was time for the wedding. The dinner quickly went by with small talks and talks about Naruto's new expedition to the Earth Kingdom and about the certain return of the Avatar. When evening dawned Naruto had returned to the harbor, the soldiers working on his ships all saluted him as he walked aboard. There were a few things that he wished to get done before he returned to his wedding. He would have to bring justice to the earthbenders hiding in Galing, he would conquer Amashu, and he needed to talk with some commander. That his father just recently promoted to admiral without Naruto's consent. Recently promoted Admiral Zhao have been putting in a great effort in his attempts to capture the Avatar, without much luck much to Naruto's glee. The things he had heard about Zhao, well it made him question his father's judgment. Zhao and his army were to meet with Naruto a little distance away from Galing in a week. A week later. Naruto had a small tick mark on his forehead as he read a scroll he had just received by Hawk. Apparently Admiral Zhao will be slightly delayed because he ran into the Avatar and accidentally sank his own boats he used for transportations, so he will be delayed for 2 or 3 days. Thankfully I was prepared for this. Naruto said, causing Suki to sweat drop. Naruto was wearing something he claimed was a foolproof disguise, when in reality it was the exact same thing he always wore, just colored green. Don't worry Suki, the people from the Earth Kingdom have extremely small brains. I have seen evidence of this many times. Naruto spoke confidently as they began moving towards the city gates. When they got close enough they could see 2 guards waiting outside and Naruto did a quick signal telling Suki and Mikasa to let him handle the talk, and Suki already had a bad feeling about this. Hold right there, state your business. One of the guards said as he raised an arm. What are you seriously telling me that you don't recognize Mikasa the Destroyer? Naruto spoke as he flared his arms and ended the motion while pointing towards Mikasa, causing both of the guards to slightly tilt their heads. Boo. Mikasa the destroyer who is capable of crumbling mountains with her bare fists, she had never lost a fight before and now she is here to win the Earth Rumble 6. Naruto declared with even more flashy hand signs, and slowly one of the guards turned his head. You know, I think that I have actually heard of her. One of the guards spoke. Alright, we will allow her entry, but what about you, what is your name? The guards then asked, turning their attention back towards Naruto. I'm the great Mikasa's sponsor. My name is Umayr Bigus Beepus. Naruto declared to the heavens. Alright, a fighter and a sponsor, what about the last one, a sister, friend? The guards guessed as they looked at Suki. No, this is Lady Suki, the great Mikasa's lover. Naruto spoke calmly, causing both guards to gain a massive blush as they began to imagine some girl-on-girl action. Please enter. They both spoke as the gates to the city opened. As soon as they had entered the city, Naruto turned around and with a broad grin, Naruto gave them 2 thumbs ups. Well, Suki was in a state of disbelief. Now let us have some fun. End chapter. So this part ends here. If you want to see next part of this series, like the video now and share the story with your friends. Bye bye.